Hello, I'm Don Hall at Don Hall Works YouTube channel, and I'm at the Chartreuse Muse Art Gallery and Art School, and I'm in the ceramic lab with Alex Ayers, who's the pottery instructor here, throwing instructor, and he's going to give us a demo on how to throw some interesting pieces. So say hello, Alex.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Muse. So when we first start, we're gonna use, this is called B-Mix. It is a stoneware. I use it for everything. It's very versatile. That's probably my favorite reason about it. You can sculpt with it, you can throw with it. I will admit, throwing with it is a bit challenge, so you have to get used to it. That being said, this is 5 pounds. We're gonna first start by centering, coning up and down this lump of clay, and then I'm gonna add this extra 5 pounds on top of it. The reason why I work in chunks is because it's easier to center 5 pounds rather than a whole 10 pounds. It's a lot easier on my hands. That being said, I'm gonna get started. Always make sure I have a lot of water, more than plenty. And I'm just gonna first start by sealing this to the plate. By sealing it to the plate, I know that it's not gonna go anywhere. So then I'm going to start coning up because I don't need to be perfectly centered. I just start by squeezing all the way to the top. Hardest part is trying not to over squeeze and break it off. I'm going to do that about 3 to 4 times just because it's 5 pounds, it's a lot of clay. I want to try and mix up the most that we can, so that it is the correct throwing consistency. This part's a little boring, not gonna lie, but it makes the whole process a lot easier. So I'm gonna start with the next one. The biggest thing you want to make sure, like the biggest tip, is drying off and flattening this top piece. Because if it's not flat, there's a little bowl on the bottom or on the top, then you could be trapping an air bubble. So you want to make sure it's as flat as can be and it's dry, so that these two clays stick to each other. I'm only focusing on the top for this next part of coning up and down because we already did the bottom. But we do want to make sure that we try and mix it all together. This is where you got to bring the muscles. If you don't have any, I'm sorry. I got Don to laugh, that's all I need. All right, now it's time to center. Centering, this is about 10 pounds, maybe 11. It's tough. I always start by taking off any clay that's on these sides here, because while my hand's down here, if there's clay, it'll bump my hand off and it's not gonna be centered on the bottom. we want it to try and be as centered as possible. So I'm gonna really use my weight, my body weight, rather than my arms, to push this clay into the center. And then I'm gonna check it. I'm just gonna check with my hands if they bounce at all in one specific spot, then that is not centered. So maybe just a little bit on the bottom half right there. Now I'm gonna cheat and use the tool just to straighten that out. Whew. Not in the splash zone, right, Tom? Alright, now we're centered. We're ready to start opening. Tough part about opening this amount of clay, you have to usually only use one finger for a pound or maybe two. For this amount of clay, I use about 3 or 4. So, and then I'll hold my hand on the left side just as an extra stability. And that wasn't the best open, but I'm going to show you a trick how to make every opening centered. So if you can see, my hole is not perfectly centered with the clay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my fingers in the bottom corner and I'm going to pull outward and then push it back inward, and this will help re-center that hole the best that we can. It's never going to be perfect again, but we can do our best. At this point, after we opened, I'm going to first slow down the wheel just a touch to probably 80% speed that this allows. You always want to make sure that you know your speeds and what speed works the best for you. And the next thing I'm going to start to do is compress this bottom, because we always start from bottom to top in ceramics, or when throwing on the wheel specifically. Want a nice compression. Again, I'm going to slow down just another touch, because I don't want to throw full speed. If I throw full speed, then my hands have to work really fast, and they're not that fast. So, to get all this clay up to the top, what I'm going to use is this part of my palm to throw, rather than a knuckle or my fingers, just because using the palm, I'll have better control and more strength with the control. After I do one throw, I'm going to start to push in this almost like a ramp. It looks like a skateboard ramp. I'm going to push this into the center so that I have more clay to utilize. Now we can start throwing again, and I'm going to slow it down just a touch. I'm probably now at half speed for this specific wheel. Some wheels are different. This is the speed that I like the most for this wheel, just because I use this wheel almost every time I work if I can. It's my favorite wheel.
What kind of wheel is it?
It's a speedball wheel. I don't know exactly the brand. I think it's the Boss XL, right?
It's Clay Boss.
Clay Boss
By
XL?
Speedball.
Or- Yeah. I really like this. Well, the reason why I really like it more than the one I have at home, which is a Brent wheel, actually, is only because of the tray. I like my Brent wheel a lot more for other things. But this tray is really nice for catching all the clay. If you can see, I'm not really making a whole lot of mess, which my tray at home is not that big. So now we're still trying to push this clay into that center so we can utilize all this clay down here. Whenever you're throwing something with 10 pounds or even 8, it's gonna take a while. Here for the long haul. The goal is not to try and mess up your progress. So we've put in all that work. We want to make sure that we stay as centered as possible and just keep moving this clay up if we can. So now I'm going to use a giant rib that I bought to also help use the flat side to help push this clay inward. I can use it a little bit better. Next thing you want to make sure is that your rim does not look off-centered. So if it is off-centered, you're just going to want to collar from the bottom all the way to the top. And that should help straighten or recenter, that top rim. What I did right here is just called reestablishing the rim. I learned this in high school by my teacher. Alright, and then we're just gonna keep moving this clay. This is a nice throw. Ooh, and I just gouged it. Alright. I don't have a ruler with me, but I think this is over a foot so far. We're going to try and get a little bit higher, and then we're going to start the shaping process. Because I do want a little bit of clay to expand the belly of the vase. Alright, a little bit more water. We're almost there. And I haven't dealt with any air bubbles yet, so I did a pretty good job wedging. And when I attached those two pieces of clay, they didn't create an air bubble. So far, this is a great throw. It's off to a good start, or a great start, I mean. Let's hope we can have a great finish. This is where I think I'm going to start to use my hands for throwing, just because it's a lot less clay that I have to use. But in place of my hands on the outside, I'm going to use a sponge, just because it's a little bit more comfortable, and I feel like I can still grip all this clay without my hands kind of attaching or grabbing to it. A little off-centered at the top again. I'm gonna start the collar, and then I'm also gonna slow down because I think we're getting too tall for this speed. Yeah. Me hooking my finger at the top right here also helps recenter the rim. And if you don't want to have to pinch, press down, it's a little easy trick to do the same exact step. Got a little bit more clay. I think we're reaching the max of clay, because I want to still leave enough to support this base, or this very big vase, I mean, not base. Because if I try to cut it now and trim off this bottom, or take all of this clay, it's a possibility it could collapse, depending on how much shaping I want to do. So we're gonna go ahead and start. This is gonna be a moon vase. Maybe not exactly like they do it in Korea, but it's gonna be my version of the moon vase. You can start shaping with a rib or your sponge for the first shape. I'm gonna use my sponge just so I can really push against this wall. And still have control. Go a little farther. Now I have to recenter the top a little bit. Then we're just gonna collar just a little bit. And then I'm noticing that actually it's a little heavy up here. So we're gonna throw some of this weight up in hopes that it's going to balance the rest of the piece a little bit better. I'm going to slow down again, and then I'm going to bring in the rib, because at this point I want to start to take out all the water and only use what is necessary. So we're gonna sponge out the inside first, and then the outside water will get collected by the rib. And I'll continuously add more water, but I want to make sure that I am controlling the water, not that the water is controlling me or the piece. Need to go a little bit farther because the moon vase is a sphere. I think my bottom's good. Now I just need to start collaring the top. Now when you collar, you're pinching the clay together again. You're bringing it closer. So that means you also have to throw some of this clay because it's getting wider and thicker. I don't think I'm going to use this whole neck, but I just want to throw all of this clay evenly so that when I do trim, I won't have to keep throwing. By cutting, what we're going to do is we're just going to pinch right here, and then I'm going to use my needle tool, and we're just going to gently poke my other finger. And we'll pick up. re-establish that rim just to fix it, just in case if maybe there was a little extra clay. And then now we're just going to start doing all the fine details of shaping and also smoothing out all this clay. I want to make sure that this top corner matches my bottom corner. I'm going to round it just a little bit more. You might get a neck ache looking like this, but it is necessary to see the profile of the view, or of the vase, so you know what your piece looks like from the side. I think this is pretty nice. This is a good throw and a good finish. Okay, so now it's time to take off this piece. But what I want to start with is this bottom foot right here. It's a little big, so we're gonna use this pointed tip to start to cut off. This is the first step of trimming right here. We're just gonna go all the way to the plate. It's touching right there. And then, oops, a lot of clay. If I didn't have this amount of clay on here, I don't think this would have survived. So I have to think this little piece of clay here before letting us do the magic. We'll just trim it a little bit, and then we're good. And now I'm gonna just wipe this wheel. And we're gonna slice it, and we're gonna leave it for probably an hour, so it can dry out a little bit, and then we can take it off fully. Because if I pick it up now, we could damage the sides, and then all that work would be for nothing. So this is the end of the piece. On to trimming. So after we're done throwing, now it's trimming. I threw this a couple days ago. It's not the same piece, clearly. It's a little smaller, but it is ready to be trimmed. So now we're gonna flip this upside down, and then we're gonna attempt to center it on the first try. Will it happen? Probably not. Nope. So because this neck and the rim it's a little thinner than I'd like for this specific piece, we're just going to take it really slow for the centering process. What I'm doing here is I'm just trying to tap it into the center to where I can see, because this piece is just a little bit off centered, so I'm tapping it to where I can see this line is perfect, not the bottom, because I will make the bottom perfect when I trim it. I think we are good. So this piece being pretty heavy, I don't think I'm gonna need mounts. So we're just gonna go ahead and get started. I always like to start by leveling off this little extra piece, the bottom, and then the walls too. But as you always, before you start cutting, you want to make sure by inspecting the piece. So I had noticed that this bottom is a little bit thinner than I usually have my bottoms. So we want to make sure that we don't put a lot of pressure on this bottom, because it will start to bend and then hopefully not break through. So what we'll probably end up doing is flattening it out, and then we're just going to add a foot
of clay. And then we can also shape it if we'd like. So let's get started. Just level everything off here. Toughest part is clay falling and then sticking. Just trim it off. Now this piece you could say is maybe not dry enough, but with the thin rim and neck, if we wait any longer for this bottom to dry, then it'll be too brittle and it might break the neck. We don't want to break the neck. So leveling this off. Always take a look every couple minutes from the side so you know what it's looking like. And again, I'm not going to do a lot on the bottom. I'm not even going to put a foot in it because if I do, it won't be good. We will break through the piece and we're going to have to throw another one. So now we're just really focusing on this bottom corner because the bottom corner will always have more clay than anywhere else, usually. Some people are great and they're able to throw with small amounts of clay here, but it does take practice, a lot of practice. So we're just gonna flatten this out, make it nice and rounded, so that when we go to add a foot, so now we're gonna add this foot. Grab some clay and you can roll it like this if you like. I'm just gonna squeeze because I'm gonna end up actually adding this on and then throwing a thick foot so that it's a little bit more just nicer. I find if you just were to add a foot on, that sometimes you either have to go through a long process of making that foot nice, or you can add a lot of clay and then you can really manipulate how you want that foot to look. So after, we're just going to keep trying to see if it's enough. It's close. Just go a little bit farther. Okay. Next thing you want to do is start to score this. Now this is just a precaution. This clay right here is, you can tell, is very soft still, but you want to make sure just in case that you score it, and then we're going to score this as well, the foot that we're adding. But I am not going to add any water, so I don't want to damage any of the sides. Ooh, forgot the foot. Okay, almost there. You definitely want to be, you want to be overboard with your scoring. You don't want to underdo it, because if it doesn't attach on there, then there's not a lot of point into adding this foot. Okay, so just added a little bit of water, just in case. And then I'm gonna start to wrap around and then add pressure onto this foot. Nice solid compressions all the way through. And the last thing you want to make sure is the connecting part right. You want to smoothen this out because this will be the toughest part when we start to turn that wheel. What I'm doing is I'm just pinching the sides right now and pressing down. I'm gonna do the same for the outside and the inside. Okay. first thing I want to do is just kind of trim off this excess. So I just have what I want. Upside. Now that the outside is a little bit more presentable. Now I'm just putting my finger in the bottom corner. And now we're going to start throwing this top. We want to make sure that we leave it thick because it has to support the piece. So it's not going to be a giant throw. We just want this clay to look a little bit better. And then we'll use our needle tool and we're just going to cut what is necessary. Pick that up. Oopsie. And then that should be straight. And just notice that I'm going to bend this a little bit outward. Okay, I might have to redo that process again, but take a look from the outside. That looks pretty good.
Well, thanks, Alex. That really looks cool, and a lot of great information in there.
Well, I'm glad I had a lot of fun with this video and a lot of fun hanging out with you.